It's about time we dedicate another entire video to some of the best real estate headlines that have hit this past week. We've got some juicy ones today. Let's get right into it. Okay, so remember that project I did like a month or two back about the line in Saudi Arabia that was just in the planning phase? For anybody who missed that video, the line is a crazy skyscraper concept proposed to be built out in the Saudi Arabia desert. It's supposed to stand 150 stories tall. It would be 600 feet wide. And the most unique aspect of this design is that this single building is supposed to span over 100 miles long, which would obviously make it by far the longest skyscraper ever built. Of course, there was a good amount of skepticism in the comments on my last video, people who either critiqued the idea or just flat out didn't think that the project would ever happen. And I don't blame the skeptics. I mean, it is kind of crazy to think that someone is going to build a 100-mile long skyscraper out in the middle of the desert, also during a time where we have supply chain issues with construction materials. Plus, another bit of criticism to top it off is that this megacity skyscraper would be so big and invasive that scientists were saying that it would literally be a barrier to animal migration. Anyways, all of that being said, this past week's headline about the Line project totally knocked my socks off because drone footage was just released that show the Line megacity is officially under construction. And not just a portion of it, they've begun excavation on the entire 100-mile stretch. Footage from Dazeem's YouTube channel shows dump trucks, construction workers, and excavators putting in serious work as they move dirt around to make way for the foundations and public transit systems. And it's pretty crazy when you look at the original concept rendering compared to the excavation underway. You can definitely see a long line taking shape. It's totally possible that they spend tens of millions of dollars on excavation, but the project never actually makes it to the finish line. We need to remember that original reports said this megacity would cost anywhere from $500 billion up to $1 trillion to complete, and it could be decades before it's actually finished. So don't hold your breath, but this is absolutely an exciting milestone for this project. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of months. Next up on our list today, we've got a Palm Beach mega mansion that was just picked up for $110 million, but the billionaire buyer isn't happy with his new home. He plans to demolish the perfectly fine and functional house. Sitting at 1071 North Ocean Boulevard, what's crazy is that this place is practically brand new. It was built just 6 years ago on this premium plot of land, this almost 2 acres, and has 242 feet of beach frontage. Even though the house is basically new, it's still not good enough for the cosmetics heir owner William Lauder because he submitted plans to tear it down and then build a new house, which the town approved. Now, you guys know that I am all for redevelopment. In fact, I personally just tore a house down this past week, so I have no problem with developers buying old homes in residential neighborhoods, tearing them down, and then rebuilding new homes in their place. But come on, William, we've got a massive house that was just built 6 years ago. It seems a little bit wasteful to tear that thing down and start from scratch. Anyways, the photos of this house are taken down from most websites, but I did find an old listing from Cannabis, so we can check out how the house looks here. It's around 35,000 square feet of living space with 7 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms. This place was originally built by a guy named Hugh Davis, and they're calling it a French Normandy style. They laid the house out in a way where you have nice ocean views from most rooms. The kitchen is okay, I guess. I mean, it definitely doesn't look like a $110 million kitchen to me, but it also doesn't look worthy of a teardown either. Of course, there's a nice swimming pool out back. And when you look at this last aerial shot, the home does have a nice footprint and obviously a really lush landscaping package. Naturally, the neighbors aren't happy. One of them said, "I just have a really weird feeling in my stomach about it. I think it's about the complete waste." I can't blame the neighbors for being upset either. I mean, they just had to deal with like probably 5 years of construction to build that house, and now they're going to have to reset the clock and go through it all again. But at the same time, I guess in the buyer's defense, I do kind of understand why he wants to tear it down. I mean, yeah, sure, it was only built 6 years ago, but the place already looks dated to me in a lot of ways. If he's got the money to spend $110 million on the lot, then he's got the money to rebuild, and the town approved it. It is what it is. All right, one of my favorite architects of all time is being featured here on the channel yet again. Yes, we are talking about Frank Lloyd Wright, One of his largest homes he ever designed just sold for the first time since it was originally built for $1,025,000. This Frank Lloyd Wright home is located at 1425 Valley View Drive in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, and it's sitting up on a bluff overlooking the Root River and Colonial Park. Now, we've covered this before. It's pretty rare that a Frank Lloyd Wright home ever actually does hit the market like this, and when they do, they usually make headlines because Frank Lloyd Wright is pretty widely accepted as one of the greatest architects of all time. Plus, his homes are pretty rare in the grand scheme of things, seeing he didn't design all that many, and dozens of his original work have since been demolished. With that being said, somebody out there is the proud new owner of what's known as the Keeland House. Let's check out some photos. So this place was designed back in 1954. Like I said earlier, the house is pretty big for a Frank Lloyd Wright home at 4,978 square feet. There are 6 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms inside. There's walls of windows in every room which dump natural light into the house. Then you can see here the grounds around the property are super lush, so the windows are looking out into a ton of green, which is awesome. Now listen, you guys might think I'm some Frank Lloyd Wright fanboy, and guess what? I kind of am. It's hard for me to critique anything about most of his work, but there is one thing that he kind of infamously gets wrong with a ton of his buildings. So you can see here the roof structure on this house looks like it's in pretty bad shape. The biggest downside to Frank Lloyd Wright homes is that they're actually often prone to roof leaks. What's hilarious about this is that he never actually really cared all that much about the fact that his roofs had issues. There was even a time when Wright received a call from an irate client who complained that the roof was leaking all over her dinner guest, and you know what he said? Tell him to move his chair. Savage. Now, this next bit of news I'm sure is something that I could dedicate an entire video to, but today we'll just talk about the highlights. As some of you guys probably know, cannabis is really starting to make its way into commercial real estate, and there's a few byproducts of this. One is that illegal cannabis shops are popping up all over New York City, and then in another announcement that just came out, residents of Florida will soon be able to pick up their pot fix from one of the biggest gas station chains in the United States, Circle K. For anybody overseas or who doesn't have a Circle K in their area, these are basically convenience stops where you're able to fill up your car with gas, and then inside these places are filled with your standard snacks like chips and candy and soft drinks and beer. And in Florida, soon, they're also going to start carrying cannabis here. So crazy to me. Apparently they're starting with just 10 Circle Ks and then they'll branch up from there, but customers will be able to visit the dispensary from a separate entrance. They'll be able to buy whatever product they're looking for, which will come from a 28-acre facility in Ocala, Florida. And this entire plan will be up and running by the end of 2022. Out here in America, we have seen the legalization process for this plant slowly unfold over the past 15 years or so for both medicinal and recreational purposes. But typically, these products are bought at dedicated dispensaries that are licensed to sell it. So to hear that they are going to be available at Circle K is just wild. On to the New York news. New York is one of these places within the US where this plant is totally legal to use, but it's only supposed to be sold out of licensed dispensaries. Well, since they've been pretty slow moving out there to get the legalization process and dispensary approvals going, a bunch of people have been basically illegally selling the product at smoke shops and corner stores all over the city. These smoke shops in New York are a dime a dozen. They're similar to those Circle Ks we were just talking about, I guess, in that you can go in there and get snacks and drinks and then, of course, smoking accessories. But a bunch of these places also offer the plant itself, even though they technically aren't licensed to be doing so. By the way, maybe this is naive of me, but I'm kind of wondering how that interaction is supposed to go if you're a customer. Like, are you supposed to just walk into the shop and know the secret password or handshake or something? Seems kind of sketchy to me. Anyways, I found several articles that say that half of New York City smells like pot nowadays, which I can confirm too from my visit there last year. Even though it's completely illegal for these shops to be selling, some have found workarounds where, let's say you pay $60 for a sticker and then you get a pot present, quote unquote, as a gift along with your purchase. It turns out it's just a very messy and complicated process to get your license to legally sell this stuff. A bunch of criteria needs to be met, and the approval process process is a political nightmare, so becoming a pot retailer is way easier said than done. That just means that these illegal pot shops all over New York City are realistically probably here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video today. Hit the like button down below or leave a comment if you did. I'll see you next time.